Welcome to Fire Your Boss Fridays. I'm Chad Pesa, and you are listening because you want to steal your life back, fire your boss, and live a life full of purpose. My ride or die, Lisa Hart, is going to be hanging out today and adding depth to our show with her practical approach to all my philosophical principles. So I know you all tuned in to Fire Your Boss Fridays expecting the usual, but today we are flipping the script, people. We're going to shake it up a little bit. I got a couple of new segments I'm going to try out. We've got someone that is good at making complex ideas look like child's play, and that you'd think she's just doodling, but oh boy, you are wrong. Meet Ashton. I'm going to let her introduce herself here in a minute. The silent illustrator in the room, that's what she goes by. So who's secretly a superhero breaking down intricate concepts? Well, Ashton is. And I have some intricate concepts as well that I'm going to let her play with during this episode, so stick around. She does a ton of fun visuals, and I don't know if you've found her before, or if you've heard of her before, but check out her Instagram. She's the founder of Mind's Eye Creative Consulting. She's brought to life close to 1,000 presentations, and I think it's really cool stuff. I've checked it out myself. I like it. I'm happy to have her. So even if you thought about making your meetings less boring and more artsy, even if you thought about it for just a quick second, she's your girl. So Ashton's your gal. All right, so listen up, folks. So Ashton, I'm going to have you introduce yourself to the audience because I already know who you are, so just lay it on them. Let's give a warm welcome to Ashton.
Thank you so much. Oh my gosh, you did such a good job talking about me. So I'll just try to keep going, I guess, with it. But yeah, no, I feel very grateful to be in this space where I have been doodling for a living for almost 10 years now, which is pretty wild to say. And I often find myself at conferences and meetings, and sometimes if I only have 5 seconds to talk to someone, I'll say, those times when you've been in a meeting and it was been really boring. Yeah, I try to make meetings less boring by bringing them to life visually. And because most people think in pictures, most people consider themselves a visual learner. It speaks to the majority of the people in the room. That's the number one thing that people say to me when they come up to me if I'm in person. So yeah, it's really about breaking down information into bite-sized images to help you actually remember what happened at the end of a conference or a meeting.
Right, I
So
like
does
it.
this happen live? Like you're at the meeting and is it like it's going right up on the screen live as it happens, or is it more like the visuals get delivered to people after to
I
look
guess,
at?
yes, that's a great question, Lisa. So that's sort of the magic of it. It's 100% live. So when I'm in person, usually I have giant, like I cover walls, or I can make my own wall and have it paper markers, and I'm actually writing it with my own hand. Now, when I do it virtually, I'm usually drawing using a drawing program on my screen, but it's still 100% hand drawn and live. So if it's in person, you've got that sort of texture and that tactileness, which is really beautiful. And then people can still experience it in a powerful way virtually as well. And some folks, they'll have hybrid meetings. So I might be in the comfort of my own studio, and then they can project me on a screen, even though I'm, thousands of miles away. So it is, yeah, great
Ashton
question.
AI.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, that's
So
cool.
we
Yeah.
should have could we is there any way for you to demonstrate it today, or
Yeah,
should have
that
prepped
might,
for that
yeah,
maybe?
that would be kind of cool. You maybe, if you can, Ashton, let us know. If not, we can pound
We
through this
could,
in a
well, I
different way.
have my document camera set up. The only issue is I only have so many plugs on my screen or on my computer. So I'd have to either downgrade my voice or downgrade my, or I could just draw it and I could show it to you. Either
Oh,
that.
that might be fun.
Want to do
Is it,
that? I
so
can do
Yeah.
that. I
what
actually
would
have
need?
paper right in front of me, like a doodler would. So let me do that.
Yeah, this is very intriguing to me. I'm like, yeah, I don't
We'll
know
just
how
do
my
black and
brain, I couldn't pull that off.
we'll do black and yellow because that's what I have here with me, and I've got my big paper. So let's do it, and then we can put it in the show notes or whatever we want to do.
Awesome.
Amen. Let's do it.
Love it.
Make sure you comment below, guys, too, if you want to know more, and if you do see this when it comes out, yeah, drop her a line. Let her know what you think of this work live in person. So
Yeah.
what are we after? Walk us through this. Let's keep them up to date. Looks like you're already doing stuff. Like it's
Well, I don't know.
happening.
I'm just doing some lines. Just doing some
Okay.
lines.
So are
They're
you gonna
pretty
kind of
foundational.
casually do it then while we're going through
Well,
questions, or?
you. Sometimes it's hard for me to talk and draw at the same time. So if you guys are saying things, I'll probably focus more on that. But
Mm-hmm.
we'll just see what happens. We'll see what
Okay.
happens.
Let's do that. I
All
like it.
right.
Yeah,
See what we get.
Lisa dropped a bomb on her there.
It's the
I love
panic.
working on the fly. I'm used to working on the fly, right? So it's all good.
What's art? It's just flowing. It's so cool. I really dig it. And you don't see this. Well, you don't see this side of business, right? But there's a lot of visuals in business on all levels. When you're in construction, there's the visual of the project you're working on. There's sometimes like there's digital visuals that are made. There's sketches, the contractor sketches, right? They're doing sketches too, right, to try to get their message across to the crew or the other people, and it's kind of already happening all the time. I think it's really kind of fascinating that where she's got it placed. And I got a book. Actually, I'll take this time to do this while she's sketching away. I want to show you guys something. So I just got this book I ordered from Alex Hermosi. So he does a lot of this stuff in his books too, like these sketches. I'll give you an
Oh, the
example.
visuals,
Like,
yeah.
yeah, so he does really like basic visuals in the
I
book
love
too.
that.
And I don't know if, and he says for the same reason, because to translate. Um, to translate the message, sometimes you see the image and you already know what he's talking about. You don't even have to read it. Just
Mhm.
the language is much faster with art. It's a getting or a knowing. And and not to get too far in the weeds, but the spiritual realm is the same way. The way I understand it, the way people talk about it, and when I've seen interviews, is they see these images that tell them some message. It's generally not in some like word form. So I think that's really, really kind of cool that we're able to use that same kind of communication here. So how we
Absolutely.
doing, Ashton?
We're doing good. Should I
I
hold a
feel
net?
like we're I feel like we're on like a game, and you're like on some time crunch, and you have to hurry and get it done, and she's the nerves and stuff like that. So,
So
but
I put a title sort of on the sort of off to the side to the top, called I just wrote sketchnoting because that's a
mhm,
common term that is used when you're doing personal note taking.
okay.
So this is what I've got so far.
What do we think? Oh
Wow. That's
my
impressive.
goodness!
Yes.
Oh, I'm falling off my chair.
Wow.
That is so cool.
So yeah, I just
What
sort of
the?
I was listening to what you were saying, and you kind of gave some examples, but I didn't worry about the examples. I just kind of got the core of your message of there are a lot of visuals in business. I made those words
Mm-hmm.
nice and big and threw some graphics around it. And then I wanted to make sure, it's one of those things you don't have to capture everything. So I've got the book, but I don't have the author. Like it would be
Mm-hmm.
great if I had it on there, but I wasn't worried about it in the moment because I know I could always look at this later. I've got the title. I can
Yeah.
always look it up
Right.
later. So you kind
Yeah.
of have to balance. It really is trusting yourself a lot, and you're not capturing everything. You're kind of going away. I think the unfortunate thing about traditional note taking is that we just capture everything and we don't think about what we're listening to when we
Mm.
are in it. So the thing that sketchnoting, one of the things about it that you don't even see is the thinking. Like the thinking is just as important as what you're capturing, right? Because
Mm.
you're listening, you're making sense of what it is you're listening to. You have to make those choices and then put it down on the paper. And I always give the example of like a school teacher. So imagine you're a school teacher and you got two students, and one is doing traditional note taking, just like lines on a paper, and one is doing this form of note taking. As a teacher, which student can you actually see their learning, right? You can see what connections they made, what they might have
Mm-hmm.
comprehended,
Mm.
because you're adding in that additional element of that deeper understanding. And that's what frustrates me so much. about traditional note taking, because
Mm-hmm.
a lot of times you're missing the most important part, which is that
So
deeper understanding, right?
So do you believe, Ashton, by saying that like this art, ancient art even, is they're trying to say something that's so big and they want you to connect it? There's just no way to like kind of put that into words, maybe, because the connections are just so massive, right? So when that's why when like with art in general, even at this level, right? Like I'm not saying this
Yeah.
is crap level, but I'm saying even at the most basic level, it's
Yeah.
happening. This magic is happening, right? Where are the connections being made, what is being understood and what is being heard, because you can, a lot of people read a book and they'll go, I didn't hear anything, I don't remember
Exactly.
anything, just happened. But if I had an
Exactly.
image, like that might stick with me, right? And I might get that understanding, or the two put together even can create that bond in the mind. And maybe this is why, like on the Egyptian walls, there's a lot of imagery instead of actual like words. And maybe this is, we're kind of screwing it up. I don't know. I'm just throwing that out there, right? Like there's some reason that there's a lot of imagery in the world right now, right? What's the
Mhm.
point of that? So maybe that's a AKA lost art, so,
Yeah.
and you're kind of still kind of bringing that back. I think it's really neat.
Yeah, I think too, it's I always give the example of YouTube, right? YouTube is the second largest search engine in the world for a reason, right? Because
Mm-hmm.
we want to see, like if
Mhm.
I'm looking up a recipe, I don't want to read it. I want to see them do it and maybe look at some of
Mm.
the words and kind of like, okay, what were the measurements? But I want to see, how did they whisk it? How did they combine it? Right? The sciencey part of
Well,
baking
yeah.
sometimes can be overwhelming. So if you don't get it measured perfectly right, it's not going to work out. And yeah, I think because I think we were so pushed so far, especially in a business world of words, and you have to be professional and you have to say it in lots of
Mm-hmm.
words and have to have all these fancy reports and it's all words, to now I hope I can see this transition back into, what does this look like to have, I think like drawings and doodles and things have just been seen as like more childlike or childish, but
Mm-hmm.
they're meant to be used in really highly complex situations
Yeah,
where you're
based on
trying
that's what
to
we're saying.
explain
Yeah, yeah.
something. Like you can't always explain things in words, right?
I
Is what
like
you're
the way you
saying.
said that with the whisk. If I watch someone whisk, but if I read it, it says whisk
Yeah.
frequently.
Yeah.
It's like, what does that mean? Frequent? I don't understand the frequently. It could mean anything, right? Like, and my
Yeah.
frequently might mean different than your frequently, right? Like, so
Yeah.
that I think that's a perfect analogy that you use there. Is really cool.
Hmm.
Look at her; she's going again. You can't stop her.
Well, I keep forgetting. I'm like, oh, I should be drawing stuff.
Wait, we're doing a podcast here, Ashley. Come on back.
I'm drawing a whisk, guys. Okay, I'm trying. I'm attempting. I'm attempting. Like, I don't know if I've ever actually drawn a whisk before. So let's try. Yeah.
So is this something you can teach to anyone?
Yeah. So the way that I like to describe it is, if you can write letters, you can draw. Unfortunately, a lot of people believe they can't draw. And
Mm-hmm.
I think that's,
Limiting beliefs, people.
yes, I just think
Do
that
you
I
have
have that
limiting
problem.
beliefs?
oh, yeah, I have so many limiting beliefs I'm trying to break down all the time. But I really believe that everybody can learn how to do this, and you just have to trust yourself and give it a go. Um, you know, the core elements of sketchnoting or drawing your thinking in this way is it's very basic elements, right? I start by teaching people how to draw a line, turn that line into an arrow, turn that line into a square. You can use lines to connect information, to separate, to show flow of direction. You can use squares to contain information, to highlight information, right? So at its core, you're always going to want to capture your information. It's pretty
Can I
important.
share something with you
Yeah.
based on what you just said?
Yeah, please,
As
please.
soon as you said direction and flow and everything, in my journal on like just a few days ago, I actually did one. I didn't realize I actually did this as much as I thought. I don't know if you guys can see it. Can
Nice.
you
A
see it on
little
the
Kind
bit.
of
screen there?
Yeah, like a little
kind of
diagram at
fuzzy.
the bottom.
So
Yeah.
yeah. Anyway, I don't know what screen I'm on here, but I did it right there, and I did use flow, and I did use symbols, and it's a full on drawing. And
Love
maybe I
that.
couldn't describe it in my journal. And I'm like, okay, well, I can't describe this. I'll have to draw it for myself so I can actually understand what I'm trying to say here.
Yeah. No, I love that. I think sometimes we do it and don't even think about it, but
Well, that's what I'm saying. I just didn't
yeah.
even know. And you'd said that. I'm like, I think I did that the other day.
Yeah. Yeah. And like that image is going to be more powerful to you to help you remember what it is that you were trying
Mm-hmm.
to just like break down for yourself. Right. And I like that you kind of mentioned like cave, I think you mentioned cave paintings or hieroglyphics. Like
Well, sure. Yeah. Like
this isn't
Egyptians and
new.
stuff. It's
Yeah. This isn't
right.
new.
Yes.
It's
This
just
isn't
about
new. Yeah.
going back to the basics and trying, especially so. And like I work in business settings in the workplaces, right? And
Mm-hmm.
I work a lot actually with tech companies. So you would think they would want everything digitized and everything, but my experience has been the opposite for the last number of years of they want to have something that has that human connection, that you can see
Right.
someone doing it, or there's like someone actually drew this with their own hands. So in a sense, like we don't have to go down like the AI rabbit hole, but like I'm not overly worried because people still
That
want.
was my second question, by the way.
Yeah.
So you beat me to it.
I'm not, maybe I'm naive, but I feel like we still are going to want human connection, right? So, and part of my being there is helping to make that connection and help people
Mm-hmm.
feel connected to what they're listening to keep them engaged, to make it accessible, right? We have such a high expectation on people. You sit there at a conference for 3 days straight. What are you going to remember, people? Like, you could take,
How
I'm
many
sure,
times you got a break?
yeah.
We got 3 breaks. That's what I
And
remember.
lunch was horrible on the third day, whatever. So, in my small way, can I help people remember that information, retain it for longer, potentially put it into action? Because isn't that what everybody
Mm-hmm.
wants you to do at the end of an event or at the end
Right.
of a
Right.
meeting or what
Yeah.
have you,
Yeah.
So it's obviously I'm very biased, but like all meetings should have this. Like, why wouldn't you if it's there to help
Well, because we
people,
don't have as many
right?
magicians as you, Ashton. I mean,
Oh,
you're magical. Look what
oh,
you just
you.
did. Yeah, that digital AI. See, I think the difference is I've done a lot of things, in my life working with my hands and such. I feel like I can just get it done really quick, right? And to 10 times, and this has been played out over and over and over, is that humans sometimes do have a critical error in them, but in the machine world, the critical error is that they don't go outside of the lines ever.
Right.
And so our critical error is, nowhere, we still have the capacity to have all directions
Mhm.
within the confines of us making some rules. And I think that's what makes things awesome. And I think it'll stick around on all levels, art in general.
Yeah.
And also on a deeper note, even crazier than that, I think the soul has a message, no matter what, that can never be translated in any other language other than the way that we draw it and perceive it. So I think that's really cool. But that was one of my second questions, so that's funny. But you tackled them. You actually tackled my first one and my second one, which is critics argue that doodling and visual note taking are fancy distractions, right? But
Right.
as you said, not. And then the AI thing. So let me get to one of my questions before you do, Ashton. Was that fair?
Yeah, that's
You're gonna
fair.
beat me
That's
to it.
fair. Yeah.
All right, cool. So, how do you convince? And I shouldn't say the convince because that's a really weird word, but in that same energy, that investing in these communications, right? We're calling it communication. I mean,
Yeah.
the value really, and I think we might have the answer, but I'd like to see how this, lack of a better term. Again, I'm horrible with these terms because this is an elusive thing that we're talking about. This communication.
Hmm.
There's no, I don't know if there's really a technical term for it, except for what you said that some people coin it. What was it?
Sketchnote.
Text
Sketchnoting. Yeah.
sketchnoting, right? So,
Mhm.
can what could to actually drive profits and productivity? You believe it's just because to help them put it into action, right? You'd
Right.
mentioned that before. Now,
Hmm.
I'm going to speak right to my listeners who could maybe use this. So, we call this asking for a friend segment. So, so for my friend, how could I use this to communicate on the basic level, like for like my employee base, right? The people within my company to digest some information quickly, because maybe we did go into it in depth for 3 hours in the meeting, but I need to get that information to my employees quickly. I don't need them to stop working for 3 hours like we did in our meeting. Does it work in that application too? Asking for a friend, of course.
Yeah. So the example that I kind of tend to give in these situations is the majority of people cannot recite the mission or the purpose of the business that they're working for, right? Like executives sit around for a whole week at a retreat deciding what the mission and the vision and the values are. Nobody can recite them from my
Well,
experience.
the whole point of them is so that everyone can recite them. So
Exactly.
that everyone knows where they're going. That way they don't have to go to look to their higher ups to make a
Yeah,
decision in the field, right? That's the
exactly.
purpose of it. Yeah.
So
And they're missing it.
so the majority, I feel very opinionated about like strategic planning and things like that, because the majority of the output from those types of sessions is a report, and it's all words, and it's 20 pages long, and you're
Right.
expecting the regular employee to understand it, to even read it in the first place. So if you had, let's
Well,
say, like,
they don't speak corporate. That's why they're an
exactly.
employee, right? Yeah. Because
So
that's where they are. They're in their life. Yeah.
yeah, so I've been in situations where, we would take the kind of core ideas that came out of maybe some of those meetings, distill them down to their basics, create a graphic that can be hung in the lunchroom, and then they see it, or they can print it off and have it by their desk if they're if they have a little space or something, where it's
Right.
seen,
Love it.
every day. You almost know it by osmosis
Sure.
at a point. You don't
You
even have to be
embody it. Yeah.
studying it. You're just there. I've also seen the graphics being hung up in spaces where they become an accountability tool, right? We said as a company we would do these things, and it's there on a graphic for people to then go, did we do this thing yet that we said we were going to do? We haven't done this thing yet. I've also had people use it as an accountability tool from the perspective of, we're not going to do this thing, and that's why. Because sometimes you're in meetings and you're all excited and you're going to do all this stuff. But when you get back 3 weeks later and you dive into it, you find out you can't actually make that change for whatever reason.
Yeah.
Now it gives you this communication tool to say to your people, I know we said we were going to do this thing, but we can't, and this is why. Whereas a lot of times as employees, you say, we want to do these things, or we want to make these changes, or can we instill this new whatever? And you say it, the higher ups go, sure, okay. Nothing ever gets done.
Right.
And then the employees are like,
So this is where we
not
can
happy.
find that measurable results. Okay, I'm gonna flop it.
Yeah.
Remember, I told you we're gonna flip the script today. Okay, so we went that direction. I'm flipping the script. I want to start a business. I want to fire my boss, right? And I want to start my own business. And I don't know how to
Yeah.
put my vision together. So on the left here, you can see my vision board. I don't know if you guys can see it in the widescreen or not, but I've done a vision board here, and
Nice.
but I do have some handwritten stuff on here, but very little note taking. How can someone use that to be like what I call like my commitment board, right? Like these are the things I'm committing to myself, sort of my own mission, right?
Yeah.
Could it be applied there? I'm assuming so, right?
Why not? Considering what I do for a living, I have a little vision board, and it's actually kind of boring. It's actually not that exciting.
Okay.
It's just a whiteboard. It's way in front of me in the distance in my little office here. It's just a board that I have little stickies on the back, and I can put it up and take it down. And all it has is round pieces of paper stuck on them. And on each piece of paper just has like my goal. And then I can take them up and swap them very easily.
Cool.
So they're pretty boring. Like there's no actual drawings on them. It's just these colorful circles that are all over it. But I did it in that way that it's not so permanent, and I can make choices. I
Love
can
it.
just take off a circle, put on a new
Pivot.
circle. It doesn't,
Yeah.
and they overlap, and there's space in between some of them. Like, it changes ongoing, because sometimes, you know, we get New Year energy sometimes. Sometimes that New Year energy happens in September because,
Yeah.
kids are back to school and you got that freshness. And then, in January, so there's usually times of year where we get that like new excited energy. But if you make your vision board and it's permanent in January, you don't have like any flexibility if you change your mind in May.
Right.
Or maybe you did one thing and you want to challenge yourself to go a little
Farther or
further.
something. Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
I
yeah.
like that. That's
So
cool. So keeping it malleable, right,
yeah.
is a big part of this. And I like your circles thing. I think that's cool. What I love most about it, people, listen up. Ashton has it right in front of her all the time. All
It's
the
literally, I
time.
just look up and I just have it right there.
This
I
is
just
the
see
most
it. Yeah.
critical part. And Ashton, tell me I'm crazy, because no
No,
matter
you're right.
how you do your vision board, the whole point is to hold and harness that energy in your direct path of all the time. The longer you can hold that in the thought process, the more likely it's going to become a reality, right? Because you're going to follow that energy, and that energy is going to be within you, whatever that thing makes you think about. So it could be elusive, right? So if she puts up a circle, however she does it, it's sending her a direct message, right? And that message is what
Mhm.
she's digesting every day. She's not digesting technically the visual vision board, right? So the vision board is supposed to send you a message. It could just be a circle, like she said, in different circles, sending her the kind of message she needs to hear to harness the energy that she was going after. You're going after experiences and energies, not technically the thing. And I know some people do it differently, but I think from my perspective and the way I look at it, the reason I think they're so powerful is because they should be in your line of sight all the time, because it falls out of sight. The problem with our current society, and this is part of stealing your life back, guys, this is getting away from those distractions that are stealing you from that vision that you're trying to have, right? So that whole stealing your life back is the idea of removing all these things. So thank you, Ashton, for sharing your intimate connection with your vision board there.
No, I love that. I'm going to show, I've got a pretty full, I don't know if I'll add
I
a
gave
bunch
her a
more to
minute to
this.
draw. Did you see that? See how I did that? So
So I've added quite a few things.
Oh,
Got our
wow.
vision board in the corner.
the
I
soul has
have
a
your vision
message. Oh my God, I'm in
in
love.
view. And
I
then
love it.
I'm a fan of the whole energetic vibe too. So I put energy. We've got our whisk and our video to kind of connect
Oh,
that.
I love you.
I did
That's
our
so
elements.
beautiful.
And then you said this soul has a message. So we've got that. And then we got our little AI guy. And I
Oh,
put the little arrows inside of him because I really like what you said about like they're always in the lines, right? Like they're
hmm
constrained.
yeah, they are.
And,
Yeah, that's cool.
so and then you said
Wow,
something early on about connections being made. So I threw that in there as well. So
that
there's
is
a
beautiful.
few things.
That's so cool.
You are
Yeah.
amazing, and you can make other people that amazing. So, do you have
Why not?
I looked through your stuff. Lisa, I think Lisa touched on it. You do have a thing that how you have your ways of teaching people to do this, right? Like,
Yeah,
is
I
it
have a book.
pre-recorded or yeah?
Yeah, I've got a bunch of stuff. I actually did. I sometimes do just free workshops. I did one today actually for some people. I just kind of put it out there, whoever wants to come on, and I walk them through how to get started, a little sketchnoting 101. And I do those from time to time. I have a little pre-recorded 15-minute kind of quick, snappy, draw your first sketch note, walking people how to draw. And just, because of time is of the essence and asking people
Yeah,
to give an hour sometimes isn't always. So it's 15-minute quick. And I do have a book, The Beginner's Guide to Sketchnoting,
that is
which I
so cool. Where
released
do
a
people
few
get that thing?
months ago.
Without asking for a
Yeah,
friend.
so I have a copy. Oh, it's right underneath here. I'll show a copy just because it's right here. Beginner's Guide to Sketchnoting. Focus
Of
better,
course,
learn
of course.
faster,
Look at that
remember
cover, guys.
longer
Look at it.
by
Look at
drawing your
that thing,
notes. And it's
everybody.
fun. It's all these drawings and cheat sheets and all this
Wait,
fun
cheating. There's a
stuff.
hack. There's some hacks in there.
Yeah,
Speed the
there's like cheat
process up.
sheets on different things, and yeah, it's pretty fun. You can get on Amazon.
If
It's on there. And I have a kind of a new brand a little bit, Sketchnote School. So you can learn all things sketchnoting at
and
sketchnote.school
you
is
just
all the
seen, guys, how
information.
awesome that was. Like, it made me fall in
Yeah.
love with her. You heard it. I told her I loved her when she showed it. So you know that's good stuff.
Oh, how long does it take someone to become proficient in sketchnoting or fluent in it?
Yeah, so there's like the aesthetics, like so there's the process and there's the product, right? The process of
Mhm.
sketchnoting is just like anything else. That's where the value is. But I do teach aesthetics in the book because people want something that looks nice,
Mm.
right? So it kind of depends on how dedicated you are to just doing some practicing.
Mm-hmm.
And we call it building your visual vocabulary. So
Yeah.
when you said AI, I've drawn this guy before, right? I've drawn him a whole bunch of times. And in my memory, I just know how to draw him. So and except for the whisk, like I said, I don't know if I've ever drawn a whisk before,
Right.
but
But in case you
most
need
of
the
the
whisk again, now you know for the same
now I
reason.
know it.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I might look one up later and say, oh, what could have I changed about it? But, so it's a matter of taking a little bit of extra time and building in your muscle
Vocabulary.
memory, your
Ah.
vocabulary. So when someone says vision, you have a little bank in your mind that you already know how to draw. So you know,
Well, a
oh, I could draw a
classic would be idea
telescope
light
or
bulb, right? Some of the
exactly.
classics, right? Yeah. Okay.
Exactly. And actually, in my book, I actually have 15 kind of top ones that I've used over the years and little step by steps. And it'll be like, okay, you can use a magnifying glass to show focus, research, inspection, identifying. Like, so the
Okay.
15
So one
icons in
symbol
there.
means 15 things. I'm
Oh, 15
right.
things.
Yeah.
I know.
Like here,
Maybe a light
here's
bulb.
an
A light bulb.
image and it means all these things, or it could anyway. But I think that's beautiful. And honestly, I think as creatures, maybe that is why we feel so confined as creatures, right? Because we're not expressing at our highest potential, maybe, right? Because instead of being raised as children to speak in this language, right, or both, we're
Mhm.
raised in this one, and we're not really expressing, because a lot of people say, oh, how do I put this into words? Well, there you go, right? Like that's the
Exactly.
whole point
Yeah.
of it.
Hmm.
So I think that's cool. And I'm getting all these other ones in my mind. I used to, I won't bore everyone, but I used to draw little people riding motorcycles as like on the corner of every one of my assignments,
Oh, I
like
love
just so
that.
my teacher knew that I wasn't doing anything in class. So except for
So
drawing little
I'm
motorcycle
not much of
guys.
a I'm not much of a stats person, but I'll throw one out there. So doodling can help you remember up to 29% more information. So we're not talking about sketchnoting. We're not talking about what I just did here. Just drawing that little guy in the corner,
Hmm.
you helps you actually stay focused and can
Little
actually
did I
so
know,
even little
I
did
was
you know.
treating my own ADHD in
Yes.
class.
Yes. So the way I see sketchnoting is like if you're going to be doodling anyways, just make those doodles work for you. Make
Yeah,
them purposeful.
right.
Like turn that, could that a little guy on a motorbike be doing something where it was actually information surrounding him or
Hmm.
something that, you know what I mean? So I, doodling has gotten a bad rap, that's for sure.
We're changing
And
that, Ashton.
we are, I would
We
say
right
if
now
anyone
we're
gets in
breaking
trouble,
the rules.
if anybody gets in trouble for doodling, you tell them to come and talk to me and I'll set
That's
them
right.
straight.
Or at least know your stats, right? Just you throw your stats at the teacher, then it's like, all right, okay.
Yeah.
Well, now at least they
Yeah.
care, right? That's all it doesn't matter,
Yeah.
right? Just as long as you care that you're learning, right?
Yeah.
Cool. That.
Because they could be thinking about all these other things, but instead they're listening, but focusing
Mm-hmm.
on just doing a little doodle. It isn't even just can be just a mark. It doesn't have to be like a swirl or a line, or it doesn't even have to be anything like what it sounded like you were doing. It could just be making any kind of mark can help you
Right.
stay focused, especially like I do talk a lot about like the neurodivergent scope of it too, because people who have autism or ADHD, like this type of note taking seems to really resonate with folks
Mm-hmm.
from them doing it themselves, but it also can be a real accessibility feature when people look to hire me for events and things because someone might not be physically or mentally be able to sit through a whole day of conference talks and you want to make sure that everybody has available access to that information. It may not be recorded, or even if it is, now you're expecting people to sit through more presentations after an
Mm-hmm.
event. Like no one's going to do that. People, like, we know people aren't going to do that. right? So even if you can get at its core, I'm focusing on those high level takeaways. I don't need to capture all
Amen.
of the
You
stuff.
nailed it.
So
That's the
yeah,
value. High level takeaways. I want to stop you there. That's it,
yeah,
guys, because we're all trying to take in this information. It's everywhere. Information is everywhere, and we all want it all now. I know everyone wants the neural transplant right now, but this is the next best thing, right? This is the
yeah,
next best thing to like getting the connections and making stuff happen. So, yeah.
totally.
Can I turn this again, Ashton?
Yeah, do
This has
whatever you
been
want.
yeah, this has been so much fun, but I have a space I want to tap into. So we've explored,
Yeah,
guys, uh, everything about what she is, how the message is sent, and the value of it for your company, for your business, and how you can utilize it. But I think what I also I'd like to know, Ashton, is on a personal level outside of your business and what you
yeah.
do. Let's tap into this transition to like when you first decided to pull the reins in and say steal my life back and fire my boss. Do you mind sharing a
Yeah.
little bit of that with us, because
Yeah,
that's our
yeah.
core of our podcast, so I'd like to go into that a
Mhm.
little bit.
I know we got so excited about the drawing and
Yeah, I
everything.
know now.
Yeah, so I was in a bit of a transition phase when I found this work. So I had left my job um because I wanted to move back where I grew up and wanted to start having a family and do
Mm-hmm.
all of that stuff. And I did like my job, but it just wasn't conducive. It was too far to drive, and the pay just didn't match having to drive like 4 hours a day. So I got a job in the field that I had education in, which is totally different than what I'm doing. And it was awful. It was so awful. So I quit without having a backup plan because I was crying every day after work. It was horrible. Um, a little while after that, I just sort of did some like random things. And then I had my first child. And it was when my first child was 6 months old when I was introduced into this world. And part of the job that I had done that I had left was facilitation work. And I thought I really wanted to try to figure out how to be a facilitator, but people don't like hire like
Mm-hmm.
internal facilitators. So I knew that if I wanted to be a facilitator, I might have to start my own thing or figure something out.
Mm-hmm.
And then when I was introduced into this world of visualizing information, and I could lean in on my facilitation skills to kind of get me started,
Mm.
I was like, okay, when my kid gets a bit older, I'll do like, well, that's a lie. She was 6 months old and I started doing it right away. But it wasn't
But in
until
your
my
mind, that's
second.
you're going through what you're really the journey you were on. Yeah.
Yeah, so like I did work like little kind of random jobs here and there, but it wasn't a traditional sense of, oh, I'm going to leave my job and do this thing. It was kind of a bit of a slow burn those first few years. um, I wasn't all in on my business like I could have been, but it wasn't
Mm-hmm.
until my second child was born that I was like, okay, like let's build a business already. Like let's go all in. And
Nice.
because
All
those
in.
first
She's team all in, Lise. Lisa and I she's team side hustle. I'm team all in.
Oh,
And
I love
so
that.
so
Okay.
watch for our future episodes of that where we play the characters. So I'm glad that you
Oh,
brought
that's
that
so
up.
fun. I love that. Yeah, so I was looking for the evidence. So I went to a conference in 2015 of people all around the world who do this type of work, and I was looking for the evidence. I'm like, who's here has business? Who here is making money? Who here like what's going on? So I
Mm-hmm.
attended all the sessions that I could that were about business and how to actually do it. And I left
Cool.
that conference being like, okay, they figured it out. I'm sure I could figure it out too.
Mm-hmm.
So it was after he was born, and mind you, I was still working a little bit up until those first few years. I was still getting contracts here and there, and
For
some of
this
my
type of work.
facilitator friends for this type of
Okay.
work. Yeah,
Yeah.
but it was just so random. It wasn't like it was barely a part-time thing. Like I was doing it so minimally.
Mm-hmm.
And it wasn't until like 2015 after I had gone to that conference, and then after my second was born a few months later, I was like, okay, like I don't want this to be like a part-time thing. I want to see if I can figure out how to be full-time, have a business, like go all
Can I
in on
stop
it.
you right there?
Yeah, yeah.
That's the space right there where most people just go either all in or They
Yeah.
just like, it's not going to be worth it. What's the easier way, right?
Yeah.
Part of that, it's like you didn't know anything was going to be a success. Like there was a part of you, tell me if I'm lying,
Mhm. No,
you were
no.
like, this might not work actually.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. Because I live in the middle of nowhere, very rural Canada, middle
Mm-hmm.
backwoods, four-wheelers driving down the road in the
So
middle
that
of
would explain
nowhere.
the shirt you're wearing right now, the
Yes, I'm
lumberjack shirt.
representing. I'm representing today. I like this shirt. Yeah. And I think that was my biggest worry of that space that you're talking about, because I'm like, well, people in Toronto or people in Vancouver or people in New York City or
Mm-hmm.
Chicago, or like there's hot spots around the world
Yep.
of people doing this work, and I'm like, well, they're doing it, but they're in a big city. Like, how am I going
Mm-hmm.
to do this living like the closest town is 20 minutes away and it's only 8,000 people?
So
Like,
that
how
was
am I
you.
going
I want to pause you right there because this is you talking you out of doing the thing you want to do.
to?
That's you
Yeah,
having that dialogue going, you know, here's why it wouldn't work for me. Now, that's a healthy conversation. You always want to ask why it wouldn't work, right? You always want to
mhm,
ask why it would, right? But this is where people sometimes go, yep, I'm right. I talked myself out
yeah,
of it, right? So be
yeah,
careful, guys. Like tread lightly. Like, okay, so that might be the case, but you don't know. You couldn't tell the future, right? But
yeah,
that was a genuine concern. So I just want to stop on there because the whole point of our show, hopefully, is to get people through this like section.
yeah,
So don't talk. If you catch yourself talking yourself out of it, just remember that's normal, but don't just be the judge, not the characters talking to each other. You know what I mean? Try to step back, third
absolutely.
person, and analyze both sides of the story. Okay, so sorry to interrupt you there, but
No,
beautiful
you're
story,
right,
by the way.
because that is such a crucial moment. It is make or break. It's like, am I going to listen to the voice in my head that tells me I can't do it? Or am I going to be like, I know you're just trying to keep me safe. I'm just going to push through
Mm-hmm.
anyways. So I worked really hard to look for the evidence that this was possible for me. I started
Mm-hmm.
surrounding myself with other entrepreneurs. My husband started a business when he was 19 with no business
Right.
experience, no business education. And he's pretty smart. And I'm like,
Right.
if he
You're like,
can
but
do
I'm
it
smarter
without
than him. I can do this if he can. No,
I
I'm totally
wasn't gonna
kidding.
say that. I wasn't gonna say that. But, I think if I wouldn't have seen him and be in it, right? Like, that was our whole livelihood up, and because I've known him since I was a
Mm-hmm.
teenager. We've been together like our whole lives,
Beautiful.
and high school sweethearts, all that. So
Aww.
if I saw the ups and downs. I knew it wasn't always going to be easy, like, but I'm like, he didn't go to business school, but he figured it out. So I figured that if he could do it, that I could probably do it. And I know it's completely just different business that he runs, but it's I think if I wouldn't have seen him and been in that with him, especially those first few years when I was helping him out, that I might have been tempted to I heard someone call it procrastinating. I think maybe I would have been tempted to go back to school for business. Be like, oh well, I
Ah,
can't run
that's
a
an interesting
business.
term. That's new
Yeah,
to
like,
our show.
is it okay? I
Yeah, so
think
if
doing
anyone
stuff
resonates with what was it? Procrastinating.
Fast to
procrastinating.
learn.
So it could let's walk through that word because that is
Yeah,
I can think I got the meaning. I'm painting the picture now, right, Ashton? Like what
yeah.
is it? This big meaning that's attached to this new
Illustrate
word,
it for
right?
me.
Yeah. So let's explore that for a minute. What does that mean for you, or what you thought it was at that moment? Because I think it's called analysis paralysis. There's lots of other
Yeah.
terms for it, but I like the way that you expressed it there. So walk me through that.
Yeah, so it's well, I need to go and get education first. I need to
Mm-hmm.
educate myself first before, right? So that might look at the time for me, it looked like, should I go to the local community college and take business classes, or
And
should
then you
I?
can do it.
And then I can do
Then
it.
I
But
have permission to do it. This is a
yes.
permission slip, right? Is it not?
So for some people, it might be, oh, well, I can't be a coach unless I get that extra coaching certificate.
Mm-hmm.
Or Or it could be, oh, I need to learn how to build a website first. Then I
Mm-hmm.
build my website, then I can start a business. You know what I
Say it again.
mean?
Why am I not sticking with procrastinate learning? Am I doing that right?
Procrastinating,
Procrastinate learning.
procrastinating.
This is
Yeah.
beautiful because I've been there. Lisa, you've been there. I know we've had these conversations. We put these things in front of us, and Ashton, you too. So I know you listeners are out there. Somebody right now is listening, going and looking down and kind of blushing a little bit, right? Yep, that's
Mhm.
me. So what's the advice then, Ashton, now that we've got that clear picture? Let's help people like break through that. Or is it sometimes necessary? Like, let's be our own devil's advocate here, you know?
Yeah. A certain amount of education is great, or learning. Like, obviously I can't go from, maybe reading the book that I wrote and like the next day try to get a $5,000 contract. Like, that's quite a gap. You know, I think you can shorten that gap by just starting and recognize when you are in
When you do
procrastinating.
need some actual learning, right?
Yeah, like,
Go cross the bridge when you get there. Don't
yeah, and
make
like,
up bridges before you get to them.
yeah,
Yeah,
and there in this industry in particular, there's not a lot of formal education that you can get. So there
that's
wasn't
true.
even it's kind of trial by fire. You just have to start doing it. So I don't actually have a lot of like formal education, and it is that I actually do, because there's not a lot available. There is
Right.
some, but not a lot. I do go to the conferences that the organization hosts from people around the world, but I like to be in the community. It's such a beautiful, like, we're so supportive of one another. I think just because we're these oddballs, but I think you have to recognize, am I learning how to build a website so then I can build a website and that's going to take me 6 months? When if I would have spent that 6 months trying to get clients, like, do you really need a website? Really?
Yeah, okay, I'm going to stop you right there. I
And-
love two things that you said there. One is, where do you get formal education for what you do? This is the beauty of our world that we live in today, guys. The reason I want to stop right here is I want to elaborate on the idea that the coaching that's available to people right now, the fact that Ashton said she had to forge this path almost on her own, but now you can just tap right into her and then take this journey. I
Mhm.
know there's a lot of scams, and everyone's like, I don't want to take a course and I got scammed, and then people are scamming you. But listen, Ashton is not one of those people, right? You can
Aw.
listen, you've seen her work. And if she, and I'm already learning right now just talking to her. So I know it's something that you'll hopefully be able to tap into and make it work for you. If that's what you're into, I believe it's possible, but just remember how powerful the world is right now. We can tap right into people on this level. And then people like Ashton are putting the time and energy into helping you reach those heights much quicker. The whole point of doing a course or a class or a coach is not to learn something that's unknown. It's just the way they've condensed it to turn it into some, manageable, tangible product or service for you to get there faster. And then
Mhm.
the second part of this is they did this study where they said, we're going to take 100 people, 50 people over here, 50 people over there. And this is going off what you said, Ashton. And I want to validate your thoughts on this, that building the website is where we're going with this. They said, I'm going to take 50 people. You guys spend the next 6 hours building the one of the best piece of pottery that you can. Here's the clay. And they had to just build one. And they said, the rest of you guys, the other 50, build as many as you can in this amount of time. And
Mhm.
what happened was the person who did the group that did the most, they started off really crappy. Then they did the next one. Next one, they got better, 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 better. What they found is the nicest piece of pottery was not the group that spent the most time making the best thing. It was the ones that made 99 mistakes and
Mhm.
got to the 100th one and had the best product out of the two. So if you think of your business like that, guys, or your website or anything like that, just do one, then do another one, and then just fail. 99 times you're going to get the similar
Yeah.
results according to this study. And so if you want to buy into that, that's the whole principle. Am I on track there, Ashton, with kind of where you were
Sounds
going?
right to me. Sounds, yeah, like, I think my first website was awful. My second website was awful. The one I have now is like, okay, it's
I
all
didn't want you to
right.
go out and just throw yourself under the bus with that comment, but all right.
And that's okay. That's where you are in the moment. Like, at the time, you're like, this is okay, I think. But you know, at the end of the day, it needs to communicate a few things. It has to show that you know what it is you're talking about, and then it's going to help whoever it is you're trying to help. Like, I think we spend we overemphasize on things that are not money-making activities. And a website can be, depending on what kind of business
Plus,
that you're running, but we procrastinate because we are afraid of doing the things that are going to
that you
be
actually need to do.
uncomfortable, that you actually,
Mm-hmm.
you need to actually talk to a potential client. And that's terrifying. But if you hide behind building your website, so maybe they'll just come and find you and book you, like, that's not going to happen.
A little bit
In
of
my
delusion there. But
Sorry.
so I got to wrap this up, Ashton. We got another meeting coming up, but man, this has been so much fun, and I don't sugarcoat anything, right? I'm straight as it gets. So you've seen me fall in love with her already once on the show. So wearing my emotions on my sleeve, but I want to play with this too, guys. Is just go out there and do it. I know you're thinking about it already. You wouldn't be on this podcast. So the message is there. The writing's on the wall. You don't listen to stuff like this and hear messages like this if it isn't already calling you. Listen to your calling. It is calling you. Go out and get it, and go be your authentic self, right? I believe anxiety and depression is all from you not expressing this thing that you know is in there, and day by day you just keep it in there and keep it in there. Just let it go out. You can doodle your way to success. Look at Ashton.
Yeah.
Okay, anything is possible at this point, and I love the way she's expressed it all. So I want to wrap this up today. I'm reminded of a powerful quote here. I'm going to use the book Alex Hermosi that I pulled out earlier today to help you and validate your mission, right? Because he's a big dog. I don't know if you know him, but in the marketing world. So a sign of intelligence is the ability to attack an idea without attacking the person. Okay. And that's the detachment of the art, I think. And so now, if you've ever taken a peek into Ashton's Instagram, go there now. Ashton Mind's Eye. Is that right?
Yeah.
Okay. On Instagram, you'll see similar stuff in action. All right. So through her visual interpretations, Ashton gracefully challenges the conventional thinking on how to communicate, making complex ideas accessible and guess what? Fun. You watched it happen here. How much fun did we have today, guys? Right. So just as Alex Hermosi emphasizes the power of understanding over confrontation, Ashton's visuals resonate with the principles of embracing diverse perspectives, right? We don't all look at the world the same way, but when we see something like that, it speaks our language. We're all individual, beautiful, authentic creatures. Keep being that. So both these incredible minds are Alex Hermosi and also Ashton teach us so much just with the basics here. So to celebrate those ideas, innovation, and the art of seeing things differently, people. Until next time, Ashton, thank you so much. And find her on Instagram, and I'm sure she'll help you guys out in whatever journey you're on, if it's for your business or you want to do this yourself. Until then, don't forget, this is how we do it. This is our rebel yell. Steal your life back, fire your boss, and live a life full of purpose, people. And until next Friday, see you later.